Hello, and welcome to today's Coach on the Couch. In the last couple of days, while celebrating family and thinking about gratitude and generally taking on that mindset of Thanksgiving, I've also had a background channel kind of thinking about fitness for purpose and really looking at the why behind a lot of different practices and challenging myself on various things as I capture knowledge and reflect as I walk along the water and such around the question, for what? This practice is good. For what? And challenging myself, especially for the long-held practices that we have in agility, to ask myself, what is it good for in a sense of like, is this practice great at achieving a specific goal? And I like to put it together in the context of something as simple as a daily stand-up. And there's lots of good reasons to do a daily stand-up. The trick is to know which ones you are pursuing in a moment that will help the team the most. Because as a team, if you are meeting to share status, then my stand-up is going to look and feel remarkably different than if I'm meeting to identify how we will collaborate today. And that again will look remarkably different than if we're using the daily stand-up to identify what we're learning and what we need to learn right now, and kind of use it as a daily learning micro retrospective. And all of these are, to various degrees, valid uses of a stand-up, but they all lead to very different implementations of that practice. And as I look at a lot of the larger, let's call them disagreements in the agile space. I don't like the holy war term or some of the other language that people use around these disagreements. But if we look at some of the practices that you hear one person saying this is phenomenal, and another person saying, why would you ever do that? The context and the purpose are the two things that really just jump to my mind when I listen to these conversations. For one person, that practice might be the worst possible way of achieving a goal for a team. If your goal is to share status, there's many better ways than to get the whole team together in most contexts and say, here's what I did yesterday, here's what I'm going to do today, and kind of build the project management piece. But if your goal is to bring a team of distributed people together synchronously so they can have a conversation, it's not an asynchronous background thing, a daily stand-up might be a really powerful tool. So in the context of any practice discussion, my current goal is to challenge myself to say, is this good for what? Before I have an opinion as to the validity of the practice. And when I talk about a practice, I strive to say, what are we trying to achieve through this practice? Not just what principles are we adhering to, as I've talked about in the Deconstructing PI Planning series of streams, but in the sense of sharing, we are doing this practice in order to achieve this set of goals in pursuit of this larger purpose. And making that really clear. And as you work with and coach your clients, I challenge you to consider that. How would you share the intent you have behind a practice in the process of sharing the practice? See what you learn and see if maybe your goals that you have behind a practice aren't valued in the same way by your client. Make sure that everybody's moving towards the same purposes and outcomes. At the same time, by sharing your intent, you may create an environment where your clients realize that the practice is the reason they were conceiving for the practice isn't the whole reason. So maybe the manager or the director was hearing daily stand-up as an opportunity to collect something from the team, rather than it really becoming clear that your goal and the team's goal is to learn from what went wrong yesterday. And I've seen this specific one, as a team got really good at coordinating in real time through the day, they started using the daily stand-up as a mini retrospective to tune their effectiveness the next day. But when managers would watch, they would want to dive in and solve these problems. And the team's like, no, we already solved the problem. We're slowing down to make sure the problem doesn't happen again. And they're just like, oh, that's really cool. How can I help? And it completely changed the conversation very quickly. So anyway, a bit rambly. I've been in a lot of different headspaces around family and life and gratitude this week, but this idea of slowing down and looking at things and talking about the purpose behind a practice just keeps coming back to mind, and I wanted to capture a few thoughts about it in today's journal. Anyway, hope you're having a phenomenal holiday weekend if you're in the US, and otherwise have a great time.